Deep within the heavily guarded confines of Area 51, a chilling discovery had been made, not of some ancient forgotten relic, but of an active, pulsing entity. This was the Black Mirror Room, a place whispered about in hushed tones, now revealing its true, unsettling nature. The Covert Research Team, a group of dedicated scientists and personnel, had spent years sifting through layers of secrecy, but nothing prepared them for this. The room itself was unremarkable, a simple chamber carved deep into the earth, but its centerpiece was anything but. There, dominating the space, stood the primary alien device. It was a perfectly smooth, obsidian-like mirror, impossibly dark, that swallowed every bit of light aimed at it. It reflected nothing, not the harsh glare of the overhead lamps, not the anxious faces of the researchers, not even the faint dust motes dancing in the air. Instead, it seemed to absorb all light, all sound, drawing everything into its depth. Its presence was immediately unsettling, almost malevolent. A heavy, cold silence filled the room, amplifying the quiet hum of the life support systems. Every member of the Covert Research Team felt a profound sense of unease, a primal instinct screaming at them to retreat. This was not merely an object. It felt alive, conscious. As the team meticulously documented their findings, a sudden, inexplicable energy surge erupted from the device. It wasn't a violent burst, but a silent, overwhelming force that momentarily disoriented everyone in the room. Lights flickered, then died, plunging the entire facility into a momentary, terrifying blackout. The emergency generators kicked in with a groan, but the few seconds of absolute darkness were enough. In that brief void, a cold alien presence seemed to settle over them all. Each person felt it, a profound, undeniable sensation of being watched, observed from a place far beyond human comprehension. It was a feeling that seeped into their bones, a chilling awareness of an unseen gaze. When the lights returned, the air crackled with unspoken realization. This was no dormant relic, no inert artifact to be dissected and analyzed. This was an active communication or surveillance tool, operational and directed. The energy surge wasn't a malfunction. It was a response, a declaration. The Covert Research Team looked at each other, their faces pale, their eyes wide with a mixture of terror and dawning comprehension. The implications were staggering. For decades, they had been studying what they thought was a piece of alien technology, a silent testament to a bygone era. Now, it was clear that the artifact was not only active, but it had been watching them all along. The looking glass had finally turned. The facility remained plunged in a tense, silent watch. The hum of machines seemed louder, more ominous. Every shadow seemed to hold a secret. The implications of the active device hung heavy in the air, a suffocating weight on the shoulders of the Covert Research Team. They were no longer just observers, they were the observed. The entire dynamic had shifted, and the truth of their situation was far more terrifying than any conspiracy theory had ever suggested. This was just the beginning. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. The story of Area 51, where this chilling discovery unfolded, is a long one, steeped in mystery and design. Originally, this remote patch of Nevada desert was chosen for its isolation, a perfect spot for testing advanced aircraft away from prying eyes. In the mid-1950s, it became the primary testing ground for the U-2 spy plane, a project so secret that the very existence of the base was denied for decades. The initial purpose was purely terrestrial, focused on developing technology to gain an advantage in the burgeoning Cold War. But as the years turned into decades, the narrative surrounding Area 51 began to shift dramatically. What started as a conventional aircraft testing site slowly transitioned into something far more enigmatic. Rumors of extraterrestrial investigations began to surface, fueled by early Cold War paranoia and, most significantly, by whispers of crash retrievals. The alleged incident near Roswell, New Mexico in 1947 played a massive role in cementing Area 51's reputation as a hub for alien secrets. While officially dismissed as a weather balloon, the public imagination, already primed by science fiction and the looming threat of nuclear war, latched onto the idea of recovered alien spacecraft and bodies. This blend of scientific optimism, pushing the boundaries of human achievement, and a deep-seated fear of the unknown, especially from space, created fertile ground for the legends that would come to define the facility. Within the classified layers of Area 51, the early tentative explorations of anomalous findings began. These weren't always about little green men. Sometimes, it was strange metallic alloys unlike anything known on Earth, or peculiar energy signatures that defied conventional physics. These discoveries hinted at technologies and understandings far beyond human comprehension. The slow, gradual accumulation of such evidence, meticulously documented and even more meticulously hidden, eventually led to the establishment of highly classified research divisions dedicated solely to non-human technology. These divisions operated under layers of secrecy so profound that even high-ranking military officials were often unaware of their true scope. As these advanced research efforts deepened, early, unconfirmed reports began to circulate about strange energies and inexplicable phenomena emanating from a specific, deeper section of the base. This wasn't just a general unease, it was a localized, consistent pattern of odd occurrences. Personnel working in those areas reported equipment malfunctions, unusual magnetic fields, and a persistent low-frequency hum that seemed to penetrate walls. This section, initially just another part of the vast underground complex, would eventually become the notorious site of the Black Mirror Room. The initial fascination and fear surrounding the potential for alien contact shaped the very foundation of the facility's clandestine operations. Every new anomaly was a step further into the unknown, a confirmation that humanity was not alone, and that whatever was out there, it had left its mark right here, deep within the Nevada desert. The quest to understand these remnants, to harness their power, or simply to comprehend their existence, became the driving force behind Area 51, transforming it from a secret airbase into the world's most mysterious scientific outpost. The implications of these early findings, though often dismissed or explained away in public, were taken very seriously behind closed doors. They laid the groundwork for the eventual discovery of the Black Mirror, shaping the mindset of every scientist and soldier who ever stepped foot in that desolate yet profoundly significant place. The unsettling reality of the Black Mirror, now confirmed as active and observing, brought a new wave of introspection to the facility. The Covert Research Team found themselves sifting through archived, highly redacted reports and testimonies from the early Area 51 scientists. These were the pioneers, the first to stumble upon the Black Mirror artifact decades ago, long before its true nature was even suspected. Their accounts painted a picture of early encounters filled with confusion and fear, far removed from the sterile, objective language of scientific reports. What stood out were the consistent, almost identical descriptions of unexplained power drains around the chamber where the artifact was housed. Equipment would mysteriously fail, batteries would rapidly deplete, and sensitive instruments would register erratic energy fluctuations that had no discernible source. More disturbing were the psychological effects reported by personnel who spent significant time near the Black Mirror. There were consistent accounts of profound psychological distress, a creeping sense of unease that escalated into anxiety and paranoia. But the most chilling reports involved vivid shared nightmares. Multiple individuals, often working independently, described identical dreamscapes, dark, reflective surfaces, a feeling of being trapped, and the overwhelming sensation of an unseen presence watching them from within the darkness. These were often dismissed by the shadowy figure department as stress-induced hallucinations, the inevitable consequence of working in a high-pressure, highly classified environment, or simply classified as unknown psychological effects to avoid deeper investigation. The public, of course, heard none of this. Instead, carefully orchestrated disinformation campaigns were rolled out, designed to discredit any potential whistleblowers or independent researchers who got too close to the truth. Stories of weather balloons and swamp gas were perfected, creating a thick fog of ridicule around anyone who dared speak of alien technology. This manipulation wasn't just external, it permeated the internal culture of Area 51. Scientific data that didn't fit the pre-approved narratives was deliberately distorted or suppressed. Anomalies were explained away with increasingly convoluted theories, creating an environment where objective truth was secondary to maintaining absolute secrecy. This fostered a deep-seated fear and distrust among the scientists themselves. Who could you trust when the very data you collected was subject to political manipulation? Among a select few, however, a growing understanding began to take hold. The Black Mirror was not merely an object of study, a relic waiting to be deciphered. It was an active participant, subtly influencing its environment and its observers. The power drains, the psychological distress, the shared nightmares. These were not side effects, but deliberate interactions. The device wasn't just sitting there, it was doing something. It was learning, probing, perhaps even communicating in ways humanity was only beginning to grasp. This realization was slow, insidious, building over years of suppressed data and whispered conversations among the most astute and least compromised scientists. The initial discovery of the Black Mirror, they now understood, wasn't an isolated event. A single moment of finding something inert. It was part of a long-term, insidious interaction, a relationship that had been going on for decades, perhaps even centuries, without humanity's full awareness. The device had been a silent partner, an unseen observer, in the very formation of Area 51's deepest secrets. This led to a profound, deep-seated unease among those in the know. If the mirror had been active all this time, what else had it been doing? What had it seen? And more terrifyingly, what had it done to them, to their minds, to their understanding of reality? The questions hung heavy, casting a long, dark shadow over the entire facility. The mirror was not just reflecting, it was absorbing, influencing, and waiting. The emotional atmosphere within the Black Mirror Research Division became increasingly oppressive and unsustainable as the true nature of the artifact slowly revealed itself. The initial scientific curiosity had long since evaporated, replaced by a gnawing sense of dread and a suffocating psychological burden. The Covert Research Team found themselves caught in a silent, internal war, not just against the unknown properties of the device, but against each other. Covert conflicts simmering beneath the surface of professional conduct began to erupt between the various factions of scientists. On one side were those advocating for aggressive experimentation, driven by a desperate need for answers, or perhaps by a less noble ambition to harness the device's perceived power. They argued for pushing the boundaries, for more invasive tests, for trying to force a communication or a reaction, believing that only through bold action could they hope to understand or control it. This faction was often supported, subtly or overtly, by the shadowy figure department, who saw the device as a potential weapon or a tool for geopolitical advantage. They pushed for results, for tangible outcomes, often at the expense of caution and ethical considerations. Opposing them were the scientists urging extreme caution, their voices often drowned out by the more aggressive rhetoric. They feared unknown repercussions, citing the psychological toll on early personnel and the increasingly erratic behavior of the device itself. They believed that any aggressive action could trigger an unpredictable and potentially catastrophic response. These researchers had witnessed firsthand the subtle influence of the Black Mirror, the way it seemed to seep into the minds of those around it, twisting perceptions and fostering paranoia. They understood that this was not merely an inert object to be dissected, but an active, aware entity whose intentions were completely alien and potentially hostile. Their caution was born not of cowardice, but of a profound respect for the unknown and a chilling premonition of disaster. Mounting social pressure was exerted on the few who dared to openly question the official narrative or the aggressive experimental protocols. Researchers who voiced concerns were subtly, and sometimes not so subtly, ostracized. Their funding was cut, their access to critical data was restricted, and their careers were threatened. The shadowy figure department intensified their oppressive tactics, ensuring dissent was stifled before it could spread. Key researchers who were too vocal were transferred to less sensitive projects, their findings dismissed as unreliable or tainted by stress. Access to the Black Mirror room itself became a privilege granted only to those deemed compliant and sufficiently objective. Information was tightly controlled, creating an environment where even within the research division, paranoia flourished and trust eroded. The pervasive feeling among the Covert Research Team was one of being constantly monitored. This wasn't just the human surveillance, the ever-present cameras, the encrypted communications, or the watchful eyes of their superiors. It was something deeper, more insidious. It was the device itself. The Black Mirror, reflecting nothing, seemed to absorb everything, its silent presence a constant, unsettling reminder that their every thought, every fear, every whispered doubt might be observed, analyzed, and even influenced. This created an unbearable psychological burden. Scientists found themselves self-censoring, not just their words, but their very thoughts, afraid of what the mirror might hear or see. The shared nightmares, once dismissed as stress, now felt like direct intrusions, projections from the device itself. This period marked the peak of the pressure from the shadowy figure department, combined with the unnerving presence of the Black Mirror, pushed the researchers to their breaking point. They experienced profound paranoia, a constant sense of unease that bordered on terror. Every flicker of light, every unexplained sound, every glitch in their equipment was attributed to the device or to the unseen forces that sought to control them. A sense of impending doom settled over the facility, a chilling premonition that something monumental and terrible was about to occur. The quiet hum of the Black Mirror, once just a low frequency, now seemed to resonate directly in their bones, a silent countdown to a critical turning point that would redefine their understanding of reality itself. The silence, once a heavy blanket, was abruptly shattered. It wasn't an explosion, nor a siren's blare, but a sound that seemed to originate from within their very skulls. A catastrophic system failure ripped through Area 51, not in the form of flickering lights or dead screens, but as a complete and utter sensory overload. It was a failure of perception, a moment when reality itself seemed to glitch. The lights in the Black Mirror room, which had been a constant oppressive hum, suddenly pulsed with an internal light that defied explanation. This wasn't a power surge from the facility's grid. It felt like an internal, organic discharge from the device itself. It was a pulse, not of raw energy that could be measured or contained, but of pure information, projected directly and brutally into the minds of the key researchers present. All security protocols designed to protect against data breaches or psychological warfare were utterly bypassed. There was no defense against this. This revelation was not a gentle whisper or a gradual unfolding. It was a devastating shared vision, an instantaneous download of understanding that struck them all simultaneously. It was a profound, unshakable comprehension of the Black Mirror device's true nature and terrifying purpose. It was a conduit, they realized, with a sickening lurch, a portal not just to other places but to other times, other realities. More horrifyingly, it was an observation portal, and potentially a control mechanism for something vast, ancient, and utterly indifferent to human existence. The vision was not just seeing, it was knowing, feeling, experiencing the device's entire history in a single, agonizing instant. The vision exposed not merely what the device was, but what it had been doing for millennia. It had been watching. Silently, patiently, it had observed humanity's tumultuous journey from its earliest fumbling steps out of the primordial soup, through the rise and fall of empires, the birth of philosophies, the explosion of technology, and the constant internal struggles that defined their species. It had seen every war, every act of kindness, every moment of scientific breakthrough, every desperate plea to a silent sky. It had been a constant unseen eye, a cosmic anthropologist taking meticulous notes, and perhaps the most chilling part of this revelation was the dawning understanding that it hadn't just observed, it had subtly influenced, nudged, guided humanity's trajectory in ways they could never have imagined. Every major turning point, every grand discovery, every sudden shift in collective consciousness, could it have been orchestrated, or at least subtly steered by this silent obsidian observer? This moment shattered the illusion of human control with brutal finality. The comfortable narrative of humanity as the masters of their own destiny, the apex predators of their planet, dissolved into a pathetic fantasy. They were not the heroes of their own story. They were the subjects, the specimens in an elaborate millennia-long experiment. This revelation redefined humanity's place in the cosmic order, shrinking their perceived significance to an almost microscopic level. It forced a complete re-evaluation of all previous assumptions about their history, their progress, their very free will. The debates, the posturing, the internal conflicts within the research division now seemed childish, almost laughably insignificant in the face of this monumental truth. The narrative key turned with a deafening click. For decades, they had believed themselves to be the observers, humanity peering through the veil of the unknown, trying to understand the alien. Now, the alien had actively revealed its prolonged observation of humanity. The roles were reversed. They were not the ones studying the artifact had been studying them, and the implications of that reversal were staggering, threatening to unravel not just their understanding of the Black Mirror, but their very sanity. What did it want? What was its ultimate purpose? And if it had been watching for so long, what was it preparing to do next? The questions swirled, no longer theoretical, but immediate and terrifyingly real. The air in the Black Mirror room, already thick with unspoken fears, now crackled with the raw, unfiltered terror of being truly, utterly seen. The aftermath of this brutal revelation plunged the entire facility into a kind of organized chaos, a disbelieving frenzy that was worse than any physical attack. Researchers, once composed and analytical, now grappled with a profound existential dread. Their faces, etched with a mixture of fear and betrayal, reflected the shattering of their previous understanding of reality. They questioned their sanity, their memories, and every scientific principle they had ever held true. The very ground beneath their feet, Area 51, a symbol of human control over the unknown, now felt like a cage, a display case for an alien audience. Some scientists, those with stronger wills or perhaps a deeper capacity for denial, clung to the hope that it was a mass hallucination, a shared psychological breakdown induced by the device's strange energies. But deep down they knew the truth. The vision was too clear, too detailed, too personal to be dismissed as mere delusion. It had felt more real than reality itself. This shared, terrifying knowledge began to forge new alliances. The factions of scientists, once divided by their approach to the Black Mirror, now found common ground in their shared horror. Those who had urged caution felt a grim satisfaction, their fears validated in the most horrific way imaginable. Those who had pushed for aggressive experimentation were now silent, their ambition replaced by a chilling understanding of their own insignificance. An alliance of scientists began to form, a desperate collective united by the overwhelming need to understand what had just happened and what it meant for humanity. They huddled in hushed conversations, their voices low, their eyes constantly darting to the surveillance cameras, unsure if the shadowy figure department was already aware of their internal upheaval. They knew that revealing the full scope of this truth to their superiors, to the military or to the world, would be met with swift and brutal suppression. The cultural dynamics of secrecy and paranoia within Area 51 were not just about protecting national security. They were about maintaining control, about keeping the true nature of their discoveries hidden from everyone, even themselves. Other personnel, less resilient or perhaps more opportunistic, reacted differently. Some, driven by sheer terror, tried to escape, only to find the facility's security tighter than ever, a prison designed to keep secrets in, not people out. Others, seeing an opportunity in the chaos, began to scheme, attempting to exploit the device for their own gain, or for the benefit of the shadowy figure department they served. They believed that if they could somehow harness this observation portal, they could turn it into a weapon, a tool of ultimate power. These internal power struggles added another layer of tension to the already volatile atmosphere. Distrust, always a constant companion in Area 51, now festered into open suspicion. Who could be trusted with such a terrifying truth? Who would crack under the pressure, or worse, betray them for their own agenda? The psychological impact on the personnel was profound and immediate. Widespread disorientation plagued them. Many reported vivid hallucinations, seeing flashes of the device's observations, snippets of human history played out in their peripheral vision, or feeling the phantom touch of an unseen presence. The boundary between observer and observed had not just blurred, it had dissolved entirely. They were no longer just watching the device, they were part of its vast, endless watch. Sleep offered no escape, as the nightmares returned with renewed ferocity, now filled with the device's chilling revelations. The sense of an omnipresent gaze was no longer a theory, it was a felt reality. A constant pressure on their minds. A complete breakdown of trust became inevitable. Every glance, every whispered conversation, every moment of solitude was suspect. The very air in the facility felt heavy with unspoken fears, with the weight of a secret too immense to bear. The immediate future of Area 51, and indeed the future of humanity, hung precariously in the balance. The implications of the alien device's omnipresent gaze were now undeniable, a stark, terrifying truth that demanded a response. But what response could humanity possibly offer to an entity that had watched its entire existence unfold? An entity that had perhaps subtly shaped its very destiny? The questions burned, leaving a searing mark on the collective consciousness of those trapped within the Black Mirror room's silent, eternal scrutiny. The surviving researchers, those who had not succumbed to madness or despair, began the arduous task of piecing together a new understanding of existence. They were profoundly altered, their former lives and beliefs shattered, leaving them with a raw, exposed vulnerability. The Black Mirror device, though still active, still humming with its silent energy, was now viewed with a different understanding entirely. It was no longer an object to be studied, poked, and prodded. It was an eternal, silent observer whose presence demanded a new form of coexistence, a humbling acceptance of humanity's true place in the cosmic hierarchy. The frantic scramble for answers had given way to a quiet, almost reverent awe, tinged with an unshakable unease. The shadowy figure, Chirchur Department, the antagonist that had for so long suppressed truth and controlled information, found its power slowly eroding. The truth, once confined to the deepest recesses of Area 51, began to permeate beyond the facility's walls, not through official channels, but through the fractured minds and whispered confessions of those who had witnessed the revelation. The cultural dynamics of secrecy, once so absolute, proved incapable of containing something so fundamental, so existentially terrifying. The few who tried to maintain the old order found themselves isolated, their authority crumbling under the weight of an undeniable reality. Their final consequence was not a dramatic confrontation, but a slow, agonizing slide into irrelevance, as the concept of human ignorance, their true ally, began to recede. The resolution was not a conquest, Not humanity triumphing over an alien threat, but a profound shift in perspective. It was a humbling acceptance of humanity's role in a larger, unseen cosmic drama. The Black Mirror was not an invader, nor was it a benign guide. It was simply a truth, a mirror held up to an unsuspecting species. Humanity was not the center of the universe, not even the center of its own story. It was a participant, a subject in an ongoing, vast observation. This realization brought with it a strange sense of liberation, a freedom from the burden of self-importance, but also a chilling understanding of ultimate vulnerability. A reflection on the journey revealed that the mystery of the Black Mirror room wasn't solved in the conventional sense. There was no formula, no equation, no scientific breakthrough that demystified its purpose. Instead, its true nature was unveiled, laid bare to those who could bear to see it. It left humanity with the enduring question of what it meant to be watched, not just by a device, but by the universe itself. What truths still lay hidden in the reflections of the universe, waiting for humanity to be ready to perceive them? The Black Mirror was just one window, one tiny glimpse into an infinity of observation. The story concluded with a sense of awe, not for humanity's achievements, but for the sheer scale of the unknown. It was an awe tinged with unease, a constant reminder that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, but understood as eternal forces shaping our existence. The scientists, once driven by the need to conquer the unknown, now understood that true wisdom lay in acknowledging its boundless nature. The Black Mirror continued its silent watch, a monument to an alien presence, a cosmic eye eternally fixed on humanity's unfolding story. Its hum was a constant low thrum, a heartbeat echoing through the deepest parts of Area 51, a reminder that the universe was far vaster, far more ancient and infinitely more complex than they had ever dared to imagine. Humanity had been shown its reflection, not in a glass but in the cold, dark depths of an alien truth, and it would never be the same again.